Hello everyone! Today I found an interesting article on chess.com. It was written by Grigory Serper, the Grandmaster. I'm sure you all remember his name. I showed his game on my channel. It's the one where White sacrifices all of his pieces. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. I will put a link to it in the description below. But he wrote an article called The Greatest Kasparov Combinations You've Never Seen. And I checked out the article and I checked a couple of games and I have no idea who these people were he's playing against, and I have no idea when these games were played. I've never heard about this. And later, when you go through the entire article, in the end of the article, there it is. This is not Garry Kasparov, this is Sergey Kasparov, a Belarus grandmaster, and this is one game I chose. He's playing against international master from Ukraine, Aleksei Surjadnji. The game was played in 2001. It was an open tournament in Egypt, and I chose this game because it features one of my favorite openings, and I don't think I've ever shown a game in this opening, maybe once. The opening I'm referring to is the Bangkok Gambit, a variation of the Benoni. So for those of you who enjoy this opening, I'm sure you'll enjoy this game. And for those of you who maybe never heard of it, maybe you'll find it interesting and try it out in your own games. So let's see this interesting game by Mr. Sergey Kasparov. White here, Aleksei, opens it with the d4. We have knight to f6, c4 and c5, so going for the Benoni defense. We have d5, now b5, this is the Benko Gambit, and White accepts the Gambit. C captures on b5. Here we have a6, offering a second pawn, and we have b captures on a6, so this is the fully accepted Benko Gambit. Bishop captures on a6, now knight to c3, d6, knight to f3, and here black has a couple of options. He can go g6, e6, the exchange in the center, but Mr. Kasparov goes for knight b to d7. And here is, I played this position quite sometimes, and if I play this position against a weaker player, then he never gets the idea of playing e4 here because of bishop captures bishop on f1, and his castling options will be ruined. So people often go here for, I don't know, g3 or something, but actually e4 is considered to be the best move here. So this is what Surjadnji plays, e4. We have bishop captures on f1, king captures on f1, and it seems you've lost the castling, but White will simply play g3, king g2, and bring the rook into the game. No problems there. g6, we have g3 now, bishop to g7, king to g2, and Black doesn't really have a way of stopping this. He still has to develop his pieces and castle, so White has plenty of time to accomplish this. Kasparov castles, we have rook to e1, and now rook to a6. And here White still didn't develop the bishop, the queen. This other rook on a1 isn't really doing anything. So proper thing to do would definitely be to develop the bishop via bishop to f4, maybe queen to d3. But here he decided to go for the immediate e5, and there was no reason to do this. We have knight goes to g4. e6 now, f captures, d captures on e6, attacking the knight, and now bishop captures on c3 first. We have b captures, and now knight to e5. And here White must capture this knight. Knight captures knight, knight captures knight, and after queen d5, the game continues. Probably queen to a8, offering a trade, and after queen captures, rook captures, and yes, Black does have this very nasty attack on the a2 pawn, but Black can go bishop to g5, attacking d7 pawn, and then maybe even defend with rook to e2. So it's a pretty equal position, and White does have a bishop against the knights, and it's something White should have gone for. But he probably didn't like this idea of rooks being doubled on the a-file, and he decided to play bishop to f4 here. And bishop to f4 is a move that loses immediately. Now I will just show you the next move Kasparov played. The next move is queen to a8, now pinning this knight on f3. And it doesn't really matter that the bishop on f4 is attacking the knight here, because if you move the bishop, then the rook on f8 is also attacking the pinned piece now. Here h3 was played, which is the strongest move, and this is the position I wanted you to really see, and I would like you to pause the video here and find the winning move for Mr. Kasparov. Now, if you if you find g5, g5 is also winning. I will show that after I show you the entire game. But there's an even fancier move. How to put it? It's a more beautiful. I don't know how to put it. But yeah, I want you to find that other move, not g5. So do pause the video and trying to find the solution. Give it a couple of minutes, or you can always do it later. So I do hope you pause the video. For those of you who managed to find the move, congratulations, you're very strong. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move Kasparov played here is actually knight to h2. And what's the idea? Well, he's attacking the pinned piece once again. And if you capture it with a king, for example, king captures, then after knight captures on f3, it's all over. It's check, the rook is gonna fall, and you can see that the knight is covering the h2 square and the g1 square. So the king has to go on either g2 or h1, both light squares and both covered by the queen. So after the king moves, queen will simply gobble up the rook with a double check now from the queen and the knight. And after king to f1, now knight to c2. Simply threatening queen to h1, a full board combination. Queen captures, now queen h1, king moves, and now queen captures on a1. Black is up 2 rooks. Okay, a rook and an exchange, but it's a completely lost position for white. Next move is rook captures on a2. This is completely lost. But of course, after this queen to a8 and h3, after knight to h2, of course king captures on h2 wasn't played. What white played was rook captures on e5. D captures on e5. Now you either have to move the bishop as your bishop is attacked, but if you move the bishop, then again rook from f8 is attacking the knight on f3. So here king captures on h2, but now comes e captures on f4. Now you're threatening f captures on g3. This will come with check, and it will open up the rook on f8. g4 now preventing this, and now rook captures on a2, threatening to capture the rook, also eyeing the f2 pawn. So rook captures, queen captures, now again threatening to capture on f2. Queen e1 defending, and now queen to d5, attacking the knight on f3. Queen g2, king to g2 defending, and now rook to f6, and in this position, Ukrainian international master Aleksei Surjadnji resigned the game, as he's down too much material, he's losing this pawn, and there's really nothing to do here. If you go for some queen to b1 ideas with the idea of going queen b8, black can always play simply king to g7, then grab the pawn and then win the game. And if you try to exchange, black will happily exchange, and then the rook is simply much better than knight in this position. So yeah. After this rook to f6 move, white resigned the game, and once again, congratulations to everyone who was able to find this. And I mean, I really got tricked by this article, as I was really watching those games, and they did seem, I know Kasparov played the Bangkok Gambit in maybe a couple of unofficial games. I don't think he ever employed, I know he employed the Benoni in a couple of tournament games, but I've never heard of Kasparov actually playing the Benko Gambit, so I was very interested in this, only later finding out that it was actually Belarus Grandmaster Sergey Kasparov. But nevertheless, I probably never would have heard about Sergey Kasparov without that article. So I will put the article in the description as well, so you can check it out, read more about him if you'd like. But I will just show the idea in that position that would have occurred after bishop to f4. Queen to a8 and now h3. The move I suggested for you to find was knight to h2, but also possible was g5 here. Simply attacking this piece, making it move, or white will capture the knight and then black will capture the bishop. So you can't really move it, as then you'll free the rook on f8, so h captures on g4. Now g captures on f4, and after g captures on f4, now rook captures on f4. Now there's a triple attack on the knight here, and white really doesn't have anything here. He can play rook captures on e5, but that's just giving up the exchange. Or he could try rook to e3, but then comes rook a to a4. now doubling up on the 4th rank. And after rook to b1, now comes knight captures. Rook captures, queen captures, and of course if the queen captures, then rook captures on g4 and white is lost. King has to move, and then queen captures queen. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something about someone else called Kasparov. As I don't know, it must suck, you know, to have your last name Kasparov if you're not Garry Kasparov, because the world will probably never hear about you as you know, Garry Kasparov was the world champion and strongest player in the world for quite some time. But yeah, that's why there's this video for you to hear about Mr. Sergey Kasparov, and I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about the Benoni, the Benko Gambit, and if any of you do employ it in your own games, do share in the comments. I would like to thank Jules Colson, Martin Frangul, and Dalil Alka for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.